And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Lord of the Rings Journey to Middle-earth. Journey to Middle-earth. This is a big, grandiose game, a game that requires you to use an app on your phone or your tablet or computer, and in it you are joining several of the main characters from Lord of the Rings and a couple others who you're going to go on adventures with as they go through and have various things, get into fights, go to scouting missions. This game is very similar to another game that Fantasy Flight Games has done called Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. This is very similar to that, except it's Lord of the Rings, and there's other changes to it. We've done a whole playthrough of this where we play through, I think, the first 2 missions of this on one of our Testing Tuesdays, so you can see kind of how that works. But I'm going to show you some of the game. Now realize that this is a campaign game and there's some spoilers, but I'm only going to show you parts of the very first mission, so I don't think that's that big of a deal. But this will give you a feel, a little bit, of how the game works. To play the game, you need the app. It's a free downloadable app, and you can get it on phones and iPads and tablets and computers on Steam. And you're going to run the app, which is going to basically tell you and how to walk through the game. So you have here, the title screen. And so I'm going to click on a new game here. And when you pick a new game, it's going to ask you what campaign. Right now, this is the only campaign. You'll pick your difficulty. I have not yet played on this horrifically hard difficulty. I'll play normal. And then you pick a save slot. So you'll see there's no save slots on this particular device because I've been doing it on my computer actually through Steam. But then you're going to pick your heroes. So there are 6 different heroes to pick from. And so let's say I'm going to pick Legolas. I'm going to play a 3-player game, play Gimli and Elena. So I'll pick those. So when you pick these people, you're going to take that person's matching card. Each player's card will show you how much inspiration tokens they can hang on to, how many fear or damage they can take. Think of these as hit points and mind points of a sense. And then there's stats. They also have a special ability. So you're going to pick these characters. When you pick these characters, you're going to get a set of basic action cards. The same 6 cards go to everybody, along with cards that match that person. So Legolas, for example, would get these 5 cards added to them. You're also going to pick your starting items. This tells you what it recommends. So Legolas says a cloak or a great bow, but I could get rid of Legolas's great bow and change it to something else. Maybe Gimli, I want him to go around with a sword and a banner. I don't know why I would pick those things, but I can do that. Then I pick the party name, which is mostly just to show you, just for saving purposes. And then you'll start the campaign. So then you have a voiceover which comes through. We're going to kind of skip over this part for now and explains what happens and over the course of the campaign, and you will embark. So this is chapter 1, A Shadow in Eredor, and now the first campaign is going to start. So you can save and quit at this point or continue, and we go on to mission 1. When you go into each mission, you're going to pick your role. So you see there's Burglar, Guardian, Musician, Captain, Pathfinder, Hunter. So let's say I pick Hunter for Legolas, I'll pick Guardian for Gimli, and I'll pick Pathfinder for Elena. When you do that, you are going to get another set of cards. So let's say I pick Pathfinder for Legolas. I will take these 3 cards and add them to my deck of cards that I already have. You'll then add a random weakness card from a weakness deck to your deck. It doesn't really matter the kind of weakness, so here we have uncertain. It just is essentially a dead card. You're going to go through your deck and you're going to pick your starting skill for, so Pathfinder, it would be Trailblazer, and put this face up below your character sheet. So Legolas would put this below his sheet, shuffle the rest of his deck, and put it next to it. So you have this whole deck, and then we click on Embark after everyone has done that, and the mission's going to start. As the game goes by, you're going to get experience in things, and you'll be able to find other cards from the different category that you're part of and add them to your deck, replacing other cards, or you could even switch roles. You're tired of being a captain, you might now want to be a musician, you can do that. So once the scenario starts, it will tell you to put a tile on the board. So this particular one says, find tile 302B. So there's a lot of different tiles that are in this game, all different shapes and sizes, but they have the numbers up in the top here. So there's 302A and 302B is on the other side. Actually, I need 302A, so there we go. So I'm going to put this out in the position that it shows next to here, and then I just click continue. And then it will tell you, if you cannot locate and enter the hideout by dark, the trail may be altogether lost. So it's kind of telling me what to do. It says place the heroes as indicated, and each hero scouts 2. So I put out my heroes. So let's say I put out the 3 heroes, and I'm going to put them in this spot here. You can see that the board is split into 3 different spots. And then it says you scout 2. And what scout 2 means is you're going to take the top 2 cards of your deck. You're going to pick one to keep and put it in front of you. When you put these cards in front of you, you have access to their special ability. And the other one will go underneath the deck. So scouting lets you get more cards from your deck to be able to use the special abilities on these cards. And then we continue here. And then it tells us to put a search token. Token is just basically put on the board for you to to interact with. And then over here is a threat token, which is placed on the board, and that's also something that you can interact with. Then it tells us to put another tile out here, so it says 100A. So I'd put this tile just like that there, just like the board just showed me to do. And it says there's a ragtag group of individuals there, and so I put one of these tokens there to show that that ragtag group is there. That's also something I can interact with. Now it tells me to put out 205 tile, and so I'm going to be adding that to the board. So let's find 205 here amongst all my stuff. And the reason I can't really prepare for this is because the map is randomly generated, so I'm never really quite sure which tiles are going to be out at any given point in time. So let's get that tile back. So I'll put this one here like this, and then I click continue, and then it tells me to put out 206. So again, this is interesting. I've gone through this scenario several times, and each time the map is different. Now, some of the things that you'll find in the map are going to be random, and some of the things are going to be the same each time. I think there's like set points, things that will show up, but here we have, this one goes here. And then I'll continue. And then it tells me to put some exploration tokens on these. Now, exploration tokens are basically going to say, I haven't been in those spots, I don't know what's there yet, and I can go into that. Then it tells us, hey, we need to test a skill. Each hero who passes a skill gains 1 inspiration. So it tells us to test one of our skills. So when you look at your character, I'm going to look here, and he has a spirit of 2. That means I can flip over 2 cards, and I'm looking for success. When you're flipping cards over from your deck, some of the cards have successes in them, and some do not. So taking a look at just some various cards, these cards here are successes. These cards could possibly be a success, but you would have to spend an inspiration to change it into a success. When you turn over cards to resolve a test, the rest of the card doesn't matter. You're only looking in the corner to see if you succeed or fail. And in this case, if you succeed this test, you will gain an inspiration. Now, after doing basically all that setup, it's now the action phase. So in the action phase, each player, and you can take turns, gets 2 actions. And those actions can be the same thing. So if one of the actions could be move, you can move 2 spaces. I might move over here, and you know what? I want to talk to these people here. So that could be my second action. Now you'll notice here it says, you note the garb mimics that of Brelanders, but their accents are varied. These are not merely local riffraff. You pause and consider what's your best approach. I can pick one of these. Well met friends, sneak up and eavesdrop, step away from the two morales. I'm going to be very aggressive here. So a woman steps forward, tattoos up her arms and across her face. You lost, she quips, snarling at your threat. So now I need to test something. So let's pretend I failed this test. I get this would be how many successes I get, but let's pretend I get no successes on this test. Well, my hand shakes, they start laughing, they draw their own weapons, and now I need to start fighting them. But first, I suffer 2 of the negative cards here. Whenever you take these cards, sometimes you'll take them in battle. There's 2 different types, 2 that will attack your physical or mental well-being. You'll draw the cards. Sometimes it's kind of harmless. It just says flip this card face down. That's not harmless, but it just counts 1 against my fear. So I drew the fear card. This one, though, says discard 1 of your prepared cards or suffer another one. Then flip this card face down. So this is worse. So some of these cards are worse. Many of them just get flipped face down, but others can be worse. And the same thing with the physical. And then these people go away. And instead, now 2 ruffians are going to show up. So it tells me to place 2 ruffians here. So I find these models and I put them here. At this point in time, you can fight these people that are on the map. And so I'm going to quick show you a little bit about how fighting works. So when you fight somebody, you can take an action. So maybe Gimli decides to move in here, and he's going to fight these. I click on the actual figure itself. I now make a test with a weapon that I have in my hands, or some kind of item that I can attack with. So let's say Gimli comes in, and remember I didn't give him his axe, I gave him this sword. So the sword says I'm going to be testing here. So let's say he flips over cards and he gets 2 successes. That's 5 hits. Had I got 1 success, I'd do 2 hits. 3 successes, could have been 7 hits, but he got 2 successes, so 5 hits. So on the map here, I say I got 5 hits. I apply this. Am I going to apply 5 hits? Yes. And boom. The hits are done, and 1 of the ruffians is taken off the board. Now what's interesting when you attack somebody, can the enemy attack back? Let's say I say yes. He will then do damage to me, and then I will flip 2 more of my wounds if I have any face up. So I take a wound, and it could be, but I can also negate it by flipping cards. So there's different ways to negate attacks, and I don't want to get into all the different details of attacking, but one thing I want to point out is that when you attack somebody, if your weapon has anything special like lethal or pierce or smite, you can add these things to your attack, and it just automatically applies all that. You don't need to worry about how that affects the thing. You don't need to memorize what cleave does or anything. The app handles all that for you. So as you go around, you're going to be able to interact with stuff, and I don't want to mess with a lot of it, but sometimes, like for example, me defeating those ruffians now made another tile appear on the map, or actually in this case 2 tiles with exploration tokens, and then it tells me my next objective. So I need to find 3 tracks. So the map now is getting pretty big, and there's still lots of it that's unexplored. When you go to a new spot on the map, you would just click on that exploration token. You'll take the token off the board, and it becomes an inspiration token. So it gives you a reason to explore things, and then it will show you what new tokens might come out. So here a threat token came out, or 2 threat tokens came out on this board, and sometimes it will reveal more pieces of a map. When everyone has taken their 2 actions, you will end the action phase, and if the shadow phase now begins. At this point in time, threat is going to increase. Threat's going to increase based on how many heroes you have, how many threat tokens are on the map, and when it hits certain numbers here, different effects are going to happen. And if it hits the very end number, that will kind of end a mission, usually in failure. Your heroes now will reshuffle their whole deck and scout 2 just like they did at the beginning of the game, and then you get an action phase again. If there have been bad guys still on the board, these guys are gone because I use cheating weapons to kill them. But if bad guys were still on the board, they might move towards you and attack, and the app will tell you how to do that. That's essentially how the game works. I don't want to spoil too much more of it for you, but I do want to point out that the map's going to change, that sometimes darkness will affect players, because as the game goes by, you may find yourself in caverns where it can be dark. There are big giant battle boards that will show up sometimes, where you'll move around on these battle boards and fight different creatures, and lots of different cool events might happen, and you'll have to play the game to see more of it. the game comes with a lot of miniatures. So we have a bunch of bad guy miniatures here from wargs and cave trolls and goblins and ruffians and things like that. And as per normal with Fantasy Flight, these models are very nicely done. I don't really normally need to differentiate between them, but if you do, the game comes with these banners that come in these little stand-up things, which will differentiate between two different groups of bad guys if they're the same. The heroes themselves are also, again, pretty easy to distinguish between the different heroes, and I think the miniatures are nicely done. The artwork for the game is obviously not based on movies, but from books, and you can see the different characters that are in the game, and it shows you their stats. Very simple. There's really not a lot of components. I mean, I'm very impressed with the boards. When you take a close-up look at the boards, it's just neat to see all the little houses and different things that you'll come across in the background. I really like how these look. It gives the world kind of a vibrant place. But of course, all this pales besides the app. The app is the main focus of this. There are 2 rule books that come with the game. So we have the Learn to Play guide, which is pretty simple. We have a rules reference, which if you need to know something specific, you can look it up. But you also have the rules online here, where you can go and just click and it will take you to the rules where you can get them online. You can there's a collection thing on the app where you'll be able to add new things. You can already see they got the Villains of Eridors coming up with more digital content that you'll be able to add and enable. And it tells you what comes in each of the things, and you can go to the web store and buy the game itself if you don't have it. And I'm sure there will be more stuff. But this app just makes me so happy with how easy it is to get into, how easy it is to play. When I load a game, it will pull it up, and there's the game that I was showing you earlier, the test game. I can resume this game and pull it up, and it will show me exactly how everything's laid out, so I don't need to remember what map pieces go where. You can just click on that piece and see what it is, zoom in, and okay, there's 205. I don't need to take a picture of the game. I'm just really happy with how the app works. The art in the cards is really nice. There's a lot of different art. I don't know if this is reused from their other Lord of the Rings games or not, but it's really simple to see how everything works. And I like little things like, I like how the weakness deck has these nice full-blown art, even though you hate when you draw one of these. They're really cool looking cards. So overall, I'm really happy with the components of this game. There is a lot to say here about Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, but suffice it to say, I love the game. I've always loved Lord of the Rings, and I like this theming a lot. Now, quick note about theming. This game is very similar to Mansions of Madness, but I like this better than Cthulhu. But if you like Cthulhu, obviously you'll like Mansions of Madness more. I like this a lot more. I actually think I might like this system more if the whole thing was done in a just generic fantasy, because it would free them from the box. Like, there could be all kinds of weird monsters and things. As it is, if I'm playing Legolas, I'm pretty sure he's not going to die, because I know how Lord of the Rings ends. So there's a little bit of that, but it's not that big of a deal. And I do like this a lot. You are a super strong, cool hero in this game. So with that being said, it's really interesting to me how, again, with Mansions of Madness, you went through, there were monsters and you could fight them, but you didn't always want to fight them because, well, most of the time you didn't want to fight them at all. They're monsters and you were an ordinary human being. Here, fighting is a little bit more palatable because you are Legolas and Aragorn and, well, Bilbo. And you are a pretty decent fighter. The problem is when there's hundreds of bad guys, and it's not hundreds, but sometimes there are swarms of them, running is often the better part of valor, but this game also has those battle boards in which you're going to fight. And so I like that the game has a nice balance between, hey, sometimes you're going to fight, and sometimes let's go explore. It has a nice timing mechanism, and did I mention the app? Now, I don't want to get into the ludicrous arguments that people have. If you don't like apps, be gone. I mean, you're not going to like this game regardless because it needs the app. And you can argue all day long about whether you play the game with app in 10 years. I'm playing the game right now, and it's fun. And this app is easily the best. Fantasy Flight has made many apps for their games. I didn't like the Descent app, for example, because the Descent app would say, pull out this card, do this, figure this out, and I sit there and go, oh man, this app handles all that for me. You attack the enemy, it tells you what it does. The app is at least 50% of the game. If you don't know how to play the game, the app walks you through a lot of things. It's really clear. It says, do this, put this here, do this. Has cool stories and special effects. And I love how the map is randomized for the same mission over again. You'll see some small minor events show up in different scenarios, and I don't know if they are like spread throughout the scenarios or if this minor event only ever shows up in scenario 1. I don't know that. I haven't played through enough, but I know I've gone through that first scenario many times in different ways just to see what would happen. And I've beaten it soundly, I've been beaten soundly, and it's interesting how that affects you going into the second mission, how winning or losing the second mission goes into the third, and as time goes by, different missions may happen based on whether you win or lose. I like the fact that losing doesn't mean you need to start over again. It just means, oh well, things aren't so great going into the next one. Now, here's another thing I really like about the game, is that card deck manipulation. Some people like throwing dice to attack. I do myself. But this card deck and putting hits in it and getting inspiration tokens so that you can transform, or having the right weapon or card out that says when you're doing this sort of test you can change 2 of these tokens into success tokens. That's neat. And all the different weapons, it just feels neat. And the theme of this comes out of that card situation, and each character feels really distinct. And it has a bit of a smash-up feel where I'm like, take my character, take my class, and here's the weapons. It feels very customized and cool as you go through. Speaking of that, you need to play at least 2 heroes if you're going to play through solo, but the game scales well because it knows how many heroes are playing through the game. And it plays pretty well solo. I played it through solo, and I might even prefer it that way just because I can go through a little bit faster, but I don't mind playing with other people too. So that might sound at this point that I'm really gushing about the game, and I am. I love this game, but there is one negative, and that's the fact that the game is a campaign-style game. Now, that's not a negative, but there's a thing to that. So you go through and you play, and you get cards, and you can save these cards, or remember what cards everybody has, and the game will tell you, and you can switch things between missions, and that's neat. And if I was playing through, let's say I'm on, mission 5, and you want to join in, and you never played before, I think I could do it. I could pull you in and do it. But I really wish that there was just some single one-shot missions that were included in this. And I'm kind of surprised that there's not. It seems like that would be a really good way to be like, hey, I just want to play random mission and go in there, and there's some monsters and some events. I just wish that was kind of an option for this game because it's so much fun, but I don't know that I always want to play through the campaign. Now, one of my co-hosts, Z Garcia, he asked me, he said, well, how's that any different than a legacy game? And that's because I don't think like a legacy game works as any one particular game. Usually legacy games, they build up and they have this crescendo at the end and just different story arcs. This one feels strongly like it could have been a single one. In fact, Mansions of Madness does that. So that's the only reason this doesn't get a higher score from me, is because I don't always want to play through the campaign. I want to sometimes just play one-shot missions. But if you do not mind playing through the campaign, and I know you can play through it multiple times because I've gone through these scenarios and different things happen in maps, and it's just, wow, I wanted to check out that statue. I didn't have time, but this time we're going to go look at that statue and see what it is. This time I'm going to do this. This time we're going to, you know what, that didn't work out so well last time. I'm going to try this instead. And that's neat. You go back and replay the stories. And of course, it's Fantasy Flight, so 700 million expansions will be released for this. I like it a lot. Very high recommendation for me. That's Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent!